The first-hand experience on Ryan's resume includes flipping over 75 houses of his own with his own money, closing nearly 1,000 transactions in the real estate world, and finding ways to help dozens of investors make money in the market. Ryan was born and raised in Omaha. He graduated from Central High School and got his bachelor's degree in a small college in Minnesota, and began his life in his career in Colorado. In 2005, he moved back to home to be closer to family, which they still gather on Sundays for dinner. Ryan has been professionally involved in real estate since '03. His initial focus was on real estate investments, including the purchase and rehab of distressed properties for profit. Through the experience, he acquired knowledge in all aspects of property improvement, including land, subdivision, condominium conversion, investment experience, and in parallel to investment experience, Ryan enjoyed a career in the mortgage industry, helping clients understand all important and often confusing processes in real estate finance. The end result of all is a wealth of knowledge and expectations of both the buyer and seller of real estate. The sound skill set available to his clients for use in any real estate solution. Ryan lives in Omaha with his wife, Allie, and their 3 daughters. In 2012, they ran the Lincoln Marathon together, proof that he enjoys a challenge. I couldn't do that. Ryan created a nonprofit providing housing for those in need called One Deck Housing, which I do hope you touch on a little bit today. And it's one of his 2 favorite things is real estate and baseball. Ryan enjoys community involvement in politics, charity, and real estate organizations. I've been blown away with Ryan since I started doing work with him probably about 5-6 years ago. I've done some real estate transactions with you. Everything has gone completely smooth. Very honest and straight up person. Everything that's on here I can back up, and I'm really excited to have Ryan here. So can we give him a big, big, loud round of applause?
I'll get started with a little background information. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ryan Basye. I currently work in Nebraska Realty. I actually have several other companies, entities that do business around town. And then like Ted said, I actually have a nonprofit called On Deck Housing. We do housing for those people in need, and this is kind of what stemmed into what we'll be talking about tonight. So it does all tie in together. Let's see if we can do this. All right, here's my background in real estate, just so you know I'm qualified to be up here talking, I guess. I purchased my first house January 2000, so it makes it really easy to keep track of how long I've been doing this type of stuff. Turned that into a rental. Had a bunch of stuff in Colorado. Cashed it all out in 2005, which, if anybody knows the market, that was a great time. I'm a firm believer of karma. So my immediate family all lives here in Omaha, South Omaha. I've got some South Omaha people here. And we had dinner at our parents' house every Sunday night. And I was the only one not living in Omaha. And Mom would call and be like, it'd be really nice if you were here at dinner. And it kept getting and getting and getting. And finally, then she was diagnosed with cancer. Said, it'd be really nice if you were here now. And so I didn't have a choice. I guess I got a car on here for sale. Sweet. All right, anybody needs a car. So I made the move. We sold everything in Colorado, 2005, we being me, and came here to Nebraska, and it was so much easier here in Omaha. You could buy houses for $30,000, and out in Colorado, they had auctions at houses, and there were fist fights in the driveway for houses that were $200,000 that were crap. So that was interesting. Let's see. I did flip a bunch of houses out there, and here did some condo conversions out there. We did a whole subdivision out in Colorado Springs. Learned how to do Learned how the first people in the subdivision actually make the most equity. That's what we really learned out there. We focused on, let's see, let's just skip ahead. Okay, done a bunch of flips, as Ted said. I own about 50 rental units here in Omaha. That keeps me busy. I've expanded that into some commercial rental units, and that's what we'll talk a little bit about today. I do also have a background in the mortgage world, and that helps a lot of my clients get cars, especially Mustangs. And that, am I touching stuff? Yeah. I am not well versed in PowerPoint, apparently. That helps a lot of my clients. So I've written a lot of policy manuals, worked for a few banks. One of the largest is TCF Bank. They're based out of Minnesota. If anybody knows Dundee Bank here in Omaha, Metro Federal Credit Union in Omaha, I've actually helped write some of their policy manuals and get their loan portfolios and their loan people up to speed on investor real estate. So you're welcome. Go there and get money. And I'm happy to work with anybody else as well. I currently serve on the board for the Omaha Federal Credit Union, and they were here somewhere. There they are. So if you need money from them, call. All right. So the reason I'm here is to talk about a different form of rental property that not many people are getting into, and we see in this market it's super hard to cash flow. Let's set that down so I don't screw up anymore. Super hard to cash flow properties. So if you want to buy a single family property, you're going to pay $180,000. You're going to get a 7% interest rate, whereabouts, and to cash flow that property, you're going to have a lot of trouble. There are other ways. This is what investors do. They find another way to get the job done. Anybody here heard of the Oxford House? Has anybody rented to them? How's it going? Good. Say thumbs up. Hey, that's how I got introduced to the whole thing. So the Oxford House, if anybody knows, they are they're rehabilitation housing. So transitional housing for people, usually is drug and alcohol rehab, and it's temporary housing. So the key to the whole situation is it's temporary housing. That's how this works. So there is an extreme need for this type of transitional housing, this temporary housing, and we'll get into the other terms. The great thing about it is location is not a major concern. You can be anywhere in the metro. Omaha, Council Bluffs, Sarpy County, Washington County. We've got one up in Norfolk. Not we, but an investor of mine. Anywhere you want to be, because there is tens of thousands of people on the list to get into these housing units. There is that much. Section 8's maybe 800 backup. This transitional housing is tens of thousands. Okay, commercial zoning. This is the key to how you get into the transitional housing. Who here has worked with Airbnb? Good. Airbnb is going to get scrutinized here in Omaha because it's a commercial business. It's coming. I'm sorry, I'm not involved with that. I do serve on the Omaha Realtors Association Government Affairs Board, and we do have a seat at the table when it comes to these policies that come out, these laws that they're trying to pass, that the state is forcing them to pass. We do have a seat at the table. Does it always work? No. But at least we have the biggest political PAC in the state of Nebraska fighting for people who are in real estate investing. So the commercial zoning is the key to the transitional housing. You can have a house that is zoned commercial, and I have some, and there you can also have a house or a apartment building, an old hotel, a motel, an office building. Any of those are zoned commercial. These will all work. It's just a matter of how are you going to get to the point where you're actually making money? Because that's why you're all here, I assume. So we'll work from, oh, come on now. The nice point about the end is it's higher returns. So in a single family house, if you have a single family house rental, you're getting, you're renting by the bedroom, whether it's $300 a bedroom, $400 a bedroom, whatever it is. On this transitional housing conversion, you can have up to 5 people in one bedroom. Say that again. You can have up to 5 people in one bedroom. So I have a unit, and it's 4 bedrooms, and I have 15 people in there. 15 people, and they get paid, the state pays $150 per person per day. Do the math. There's your tax money. That goes to the person who's running the house. I don't run any of the houses. I rent to the licensed people who are running these houses. And they're easy to get a hold of. All their information's through DHHS, anybody who has a license. So that's the key. It's not I'm renting out to a family of 5 or, so I'm going to get $1,500 a month. They don't have to be related because it's commercial. You can have more than one per bedroom because it's commercial. And you don't have the rules of landlord-tenant law because it's commercial. And you don't have an issue being a commercial property because everybody who's staying is temporary. Like a hotel that we're in. That's how it's seen in the eyes of the government. So you're operating a commercial business for transitional housing. And you don't have to have a license. You just have to rent to somebody who does. I'm getting better. Okay. Here's the type of agencies that I work with, and then I'll have a few others that are available out there for anybody else that's looking to get involved in this process. So, to start, the Nebraska Department of Corrections. You can reach out to their housing coordinator if you have a spot, and they can get you approved for your location. Has anybody heard that the prisons are overcrowded? Yes, they are overcrowded. They will actually pay you to take people at the end of their terms because it's cheaper to pay you than pay the prison system. So anybody that is in that process can get paid to be in there. And everybody's thinking, well, I don't want 15 felons in my house. You're looking at it the wrong way. Okay? You're providing a service for us, the taxpayer, to actually save us money. Okay, so the first type we get are parolees. So, anybody been to prison? I'm kidding. Okay, kidding. Parolees all have most of them have transitionals, and they have a PO that they got to talk to, depending on what the crime was, and if they had any type of like drug or alcohol abuse. It's hard when you come back into the world, and depending on how long you've been in, you come back into the world, and you need to have an address to get a job. You need to have a computer to apply for jobs. You need to learn things that you didn't know before you were in, and to get that process to get reacclimated. I actually personally hire a lot of the people that come through that system for some of the construction work that I do on some of the properties that I have, and it actually works out well, because now we're adding a skill to that, and if they like it, we continue. If they don't like it, they go to something else. It's not a big deal. We actually work on some of the properties that we have, and it's kind of a win-win for everybody. The other one is transitions. So a lot of time with transitions, you have people who are repeat offenders that the state doesn't want to house because they're idiots. They got 5 DUIs, and it's like, okay, why do I got to put that guy in prison? You know, they need to go to a sober house, then they need to go to a transition house. They need to get their stuff together, making sure we didn't have kids here. So that's a lot of the transitions. I don't deal with a lot of those, depending on the 2 properties that we have people going through. It's a little different, and you'll learn if you're starting to do this, or you're working with an agency, or you're working with somebody who's certified. You don't want to mix all of these, because it's never a good idea. You want to have like-minded or like system folks who are proactively working towards the goal of being in and being out. So the minimum day is 3 months, 120 days, and it goes up to 6 months and sometimes 1 year, depending on the person. But that's all considered temporary in the eyes of commercial rental property. There's a lot of money that's been approved for these programs through the federal government over the last couple years. Just so you know, it's all that stuff that people are complaining about, saying, oh, there's $1.7 billion. Well, here's your way to get a piece of it. You might as well. You're paying for it. Okay, VSL, that's a vocational skills training. In addition to some of our transitional and paroled people, you can offer vocational skills. That can be as little as learning how to use a computer. Believe it or not, some people who have been in don't know email. You know, they went in and it was AOL. They came out and it's like, what the, you know, it's on my phone. How do I do that? You know, they get a flip phone. It's okay. But it can be as little as that, or it can go up to, we have some agencies that are working with MCC. If anybody's familiar with those programs, they do plumbing, electrical, HVAC, which is great because we have a shortage of all of those contractors here in Omaha. And now we're getting people that want to come out, want to learn a skill, and guess what? They're learning a skill in a demand job that they can support themselves on. Now they don't have to do stupid things that will go back into the system. So that, again, we are bettering the community by offering these services and hopefully that will transition into the next stuff. And if anybody knows contractors, plumbers, electricians, that's a good thing. You can say, hey, I've got this tenant who's in this program, and he's going to need to apprenticeship somewhere. And guess what? You'll be a hero to that contractor. We've had one go into the plumbing world, and it's crazy because there's just a shortage of all that industry, and everybody here knows that, right? Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right. The last one is sex offenders. So raise your hand if you're a sex offender. Okay. All right. Couple of you. Thanks. I saw your hands. That's a little different category. There's still a need. You've got to look at it as a need, okay? That's a different category. So when you're dealing with that category, again, like I was saying, you don't want to mix these different avenues into the same house. But with one of those, you have to have a commercial property. You've got to be more than 500 feet from a school, from a daycare, from a public park. So finding the property for that is a little harder. But I will tell you, it pays more because there's just limited number of properties. So if you have the right person to handle a house like that, and you have the right location, hopefully you can better society by transitioning some of those folks back into the real world. That's about all I can say is that's the only one where location matters. I'll get questions at the end. I know I talk a lot. That's not beer. All right, yes. Okay, other transitional housings. Okay, we talked a little bit about rehabilitation. So drugs and alcohol, that's the Oxford House. That's their bread and butter. So the Oxford House is the only one in this state who can run transitional housing through residential property. Because they're national, and they sued, and nobody wanted to put up with it because they have big pockets. So they're the only ones that can run it through residential property. And they do, and they run tight ship. I had them in one of my properties, and I figured out how that system all worked, and I didn't kick them out. I just told them, all right, you're making $10,000 a month. Like, you need to write me a check, like, for $2,500. Like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do. So that's how I learned how to get into all the other ones. So they're a tough cookie, but they run their whole operation. That's what you'll find out. And they are looking for houses. If anybody wants to link up with them, it's Oxford House, Omaha. Veterans. So my dad's a veteran. That's one of the reasons I started On Deck Housing. That's my nonprofit. Thank you, sir. That's my nonprofit that I deal with. We have a house, a property downtown, and we deal with a lot of people who are senior in age and just on fixed income, and some of that fixed income is their government pension, which is crap because they only worked there for 10 years or whatever. But we do run that one. They do have separate ones. Has anybody heard of the Victory Apartments? South Omaha, it's off of where Grace University used to be. So they're the biggest one in town. Victory Apartments, they cater to veterans who need housing, and they do one hell of a job, but they're getting overwhelmed. They're almost full into the next building, but they do a wonderful job. People with PTS and rehab for physical or mental disabilities that they've had. Any veterans in here? Thank you. And we call it PTS because it's not a disability. Okay, son of a veteran, that's why. Women's shelter. So this is women's housing. This is usually more than one, and you've heard of the Lydia House downtown. That's one. It's very full all the time. So women's shelter. I have 3 daughters. Again, so it makes me look at these things like long term. So that's open for women in abusive relationships. Also, women who are homeless. So they may have been in a relationship and they got kicked to the curb and now they're homeless. They may or may not have a child. It's sad and it happens. So we did have one house that was all women who were under 25 in abusive relationships. I was like, it was full. Like, you can't even imagine. Like, the great thing about that is now you have, just like for a parolee, you have a house, but none of the stuff is in their name. So no, the address, the taxes, the county assessor, the utilities, none of that, because you can't, with the online systems that we have, you cannot imagine how these a-holes can track down their ex through cell phone or utilities or all this stuff. And so you give them a safe place under one roof with a secure entrance to get back to a real life after the fact. And that's, again, these are all places that have needs, and let me know if I'm going over. Refugee programs, tons of those going on right now, especially Ukraine. We have Ukrainian refugees right now. The apartment that got busted recently in the news, half of that was refugees, if you didn't know. So a lot of that needs to find another house. These are all still government financed. These are all temporary. Refugees, in my experience, and I haven't had them in my personal properties, but I've had other folks do them. They don't want to sit on their laurels. They want the American dream. They want to go find a job. They want to get the hell out of your place and buy a house with a picket fence and get a little Paris Hilton dog. It's funny. They have those dreams, and it's like, we saw this stuff on TV. That's what we want to do. It's like, great, go do it. Knock yourself out. So it's very short term, and they do. You've got to work with those agencies to get them through there. The other ones you can do, and I asterisk those because they take a little more work, and it's like seniors, for example. You can have a senior living house, but unless the whole facility is licensed that way, then it has to be temporary. So you can have, I know it sounds weird, but unless the whole place is for 55 and older, then you can't do it. So you have to do it it's all or nothing with seniors. Visiting nurses, this is probably what a lot of people do with their Airbnbs. You have nurses that come here, especially the Med Center, Midtown, 6 months to 1 year contract. Those are great. It's a little more work to filter those throughout. Adult with disabilities. Anybody know the Sheltering Tree? They have a facility that they run, and that does great work. Again, these are a little more longer term, so that's why I put asterisks by them, so they don't necessarily always qualify for what we're talking about today. All right, so how I got into this was the community value side of this. And the two people that I have who are licensed that work with me, they both say the same thing. I don't know if they took a class or what, but it's change the mind, change the person. So all these folks who are coming through these transitional houses, there's a reason. There's a reason they're coming through. And somewhere along the way, somebody gave up on them. But they're given this chance, and you can help out for a profit to get them back into our society and help fulfill the need. This also works as a nonprofit opportunity. Does anybody in here have a nonprofit? Thank you. So I run mine through, I run one of mine through my on-deck housing, so it's nonprofit. If you're doing this type of work, you can set up a nonprofit, 501(c). You can get the real estate taxes wiped off. You can get grants for the utilities. Now your NOI is going up, and you're able to help more people. So we have one, and it's a 10-unit building. It's all seniors on fixed income, and we're able to keep the rent down, pay all the utilities because we don't pay taxes, and we get a grant every year for $10,000 for the utilities. It doesn't pay all, that doesn't pay all the utilities, but pretty close, pretty close. And we're applying for another grant to actually put in Wi-Fi for the whole building, which will be interesting because nobody has a computer in that house. But, TVs and cell phones, I'm sure there's some, they'll figure it out. But that's the trick, is grants, private funds, all available once you set these things up to work as a nonprofit. And there's grants available to transition these properties into the commercial rental property that you want to do. So we have one over on like 75th Street on the back end of Furniture Mart. We got a $40,000 grant to rehab this property. The only stipulation was we had to rent it for 5 years. So the person signed a 5-year lease, like, sure, I'll sign me up, and that's been full ever since. And it's very, new appliances, new flooring, new lights. So it's all LED lights. It's low cost. It's, behind the Furniture Mart. Guess where half of them work? The warehouse, the Furniture Mart, because they can walk to work. Because guess what? There's no valet parking in prison. I don't know if you knew that. Nobody has a car. Just you walk out, you get out, and that's what it is. So there is always a need, as I talked about before. There's nearly 10,000 people on this waiting list. So if you have a property in mind that you're thinking about, this is an avenue to go. I think we're near the end here. Yes. All right, we're near the end. Okay. My name's Ryan Basye. I appreciate you letting me be here tonight. I know there's going to be some questions, so we're happy to take those at this time, and we can go from there.
My name is Rachel Herman. Can you specify if you don't want sex offenders? Like, can you pick and choose what type of person transitional house that you have? And my second question is, how do you deal with the neighbors? We do have an Oxford house behind us, and they've been wonderful neighbors, but at first I was very concerned. So how do you deal with neighbors like me?
All right, well, we're starting with the easy ones. Good. Yes. Sex offenders, yes. Yes, you can. You can pick and choose who you want. The Nebraska Department of Corrections will depend. If you have somebody who has a license, they have to be educated and licensed in each particular field, whether that's vocational, sex, because there's all training that goes with part of the parole process. And you can request that you don't want something, or you may not qualify. If your place is not in a location that qualifies, then you're automatically out. As far as the neighbors go, so here's the nice thing, is a lot of the properties that you're looking for are in commercial areas. So you don't have a lot of neighbors. Oxford House does, they're the only ones in residential housing. So a lot of the ones you're gonna find are behind a mall, or I have one behind the Furniture Mart. It's all commercial people. There's a body shop next to it and a tattoo place and this, so none of them doesn't bother anybody. But we with all my rentals, I usually go around and say, hey, here's my card. I own this property. If you ever have any issues with it, contact me directly. I rarely get calls.
Hi, my name's Kim Agnew.
Hey, Kim.
Hi. Do you have to find the licensed people, or does the Nebraska Department of Corrections find them and match them with your house? How does that work?
Yes, you can do both. The question was, how do you find the folks who are licensed to do this? So you can call DHHS or the Nebraska Department of Corrections, and they have a list of where they can send parolees, and that's how I started my journey. They actually sent me the whole list, and so I started calling them. It's like, hey, I got a place. Do you want? Nope. Okay. Hey, you got a place. Do you want what? Like, hey, so it works. Any more questions?
I got a question for you. If you are remodeling a house and you discover that the rates have gone up so much it might not be worth to keep it, is reaching out to a group like Oxford an opportunity? And what would that process look like? Who would you call? What kind of changes might they want to see in that property?
Okay, so that'll go with a lot of them. If you have a residential property, Oxford House requires at least 4 bedrooms, and then they'll want to have an office space as well. But you can Google Oxford House Omaha. The first number gets you to the main line, and they will tell you exactly what they require. They are very specific about where they want to be location-wise and what they want to have as far as the housing goes.
Check. So Ken's here from Oxford, so maybe when we get done, we'll get Ken up here and ask him some questions too.
Absolutely,
So.
yeah. He's a better reference than I am.
Have you done that though? I know that Ron Kendall in the room has done something like this too, where Ron, raise your hand. So you got a handful of sober living homes, and he said, I know he mentioned in his podcast with us that he actually takes the group through a home before he remodels it, and has them kind of lay out what they want. Is that correct? And do you do that also?
And that's a great idea. If you're making a place specifically for, and this is a long-term play. This is not house flipping. This is a long-term play. So if you're making this as a long-term play, yes, you want to satisfy your client. Mm-hmm. If you're building a Starbucks, you want to make sure the clients are going to love it, and these are your clients. So when I look for places, and now we're looking at bigger and bigger places, so I'm looking at office buildings, as this is probably part of that conversion, not residential, but office. When I look at these office buildings, smaller offices, like 10,000 square foot, sounds small, but once you start developing it, it gets smaller. If it's 1 or 2 levels, you don't need an elevator. And I'm looking for ones that have more bathrooms. Because the more bathrooms it has, the less I have to put in to transition this out. And offices are great because to convert somebody's office into a bedroom, you're a closet away, really. And they're going to put 2, 3 people in that office. And so now you have bathrooms in the hallway, and you're more than likely going to have to double them because you have to have showers. How many offices have showers, you know? So you're going to have to double them no matter what they are.
Okay, good. So let's say that I find a property tomorrow and I want to do this transitional housing thing that you're talking about. What are like the first 3 steps that I have to do to get it set up?
If you want to do this tomorrow, get your checkbook out, because it's not cheap. You got to get commercial financing usually, unless you're paying cash, like, you know, the guy's standing up by the bar out there. Love it when they don't pay attention. But it's more expensive to get into. There is money up front. It's going to cost you to transform these properties into what works. And if you're applying for grants, that takes time. It does. So you could be 3, 4, 6 months out before you even have the first person coming in writing a check. The key is to have somebody who's licensed or registered with the state that has the need and the ability to operate that property. That's the first key. And if they say, hey, I can fill that if you do A, B, C, D, then you get that done. You called, where's our construction guy? It was just up here. Call Tanner. Tanner, where you at, Tanner? I've worked with Tanner before. He does a great job. He's Class A, which is rare in Omaha, by the way, that you can get anything done under that license. So that's what I would tell you.
Hi there, my name's Kurt. So you have the property, you do the build out, you rent to a licensed person. Who manages the property, and are the tenants kind of self-policing as far as, you know, coming and going and you know,
No.
getting along, I guess?
Yeah, great question. So who runs the property? Your lease is with the licensed person that's running the property. They handle the in and the out. They handle the insurance on the property. They handle all the people that come in and out of that property. Because some people could be 90 days, some people 120 days, and the latest was, we just opened one up, and the lady said, yeah, all these people got a 6-month payment, and it was like 3 months up front. I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll find a way. So they manage the whole thing. You don't need to know who's in and out. They insure it. They are required to maintain it. You have a commercial lease with the licensee to cover that. And if any commercial agents in here? Okay, so commercial lease is typically 5 years with X number of renewals at a 5-year plus 10%, and that's exactly what they will sign. Yep.
Hi, Autumn Evans. Okay, so where did you get the $40,000 grant? Who granted that? Where'd you get it from?
That one came from the Omaha Community Foundation. Yep.
They have any deed restrictions on the property? Or
Commercial.
Did they do a commercial deed restriction on that?
No, it just had to be a commercial property for transitional housing. They had to see the lease.
Okay, so there was no deed restriction
We're
to where you
pretty-
couldn't sell it if you wanted
Oh,
to?
no.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you. My question is, you talked about some of the houses being in residential areas, but they have to be zoned as a commercial property, correct? So not those that are already in commercial areas. What about getting the homes zoned for?
So perfect timing. So Oxford is the only one who does.
We can't be anywhere near each other.
Oxford's the only one that does residential housing. So what I'm talking about is commercial zoned properties for that specific purpose. Oxford is the only one that will do residential zoned housing. They can tell you a little bit more.
So in 1975, Paul Malloy championed the American with Disabilities Act in Congress and the House, got it passed through. That grants Oxford House Inc. the ability to house individual drug addicts that are not related by blood in a single family dwelling. So most of my houses run between 8 and 11 people. I have them all over the city. I currently have 42 properties with several of the people that are in this room right now. It does provide a positive income stream. You're not gonna get super rich off of it, right? I like to be fully transparent. Yes, there are programs that are going to allow you to hire a house manager and get that guy in there and have him managing inmates that are coming out of the Department of Corrections, and you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're also going to be paying a living wage to someone to manage that home. Oxford House Inc. works on a democratic basis, so the people that are in the house are running and managing their own home. They're overseen by my staff here in the city. The nice part about something like working with Oxford House is your check's gonna be there every month. It's going to be early. They're going to pay their rent. It's going to be the nicest house in the block. We insist on it. So we are allowed to be in residential areas. I strictly look for residential homes, but I expand. This year I'll do 19, so.
There you go. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Catrice. I wanted to know what was the nonprofit housing that could be for residential?
The nonprofit housing for residential?
Yeah, I thought you said there was residential housing you can do for nonprofits. Or I didn't hear right.
I'm confused, but so I have a nonprofit. It's just been working out. Yeah, you can. It's best if you put a house into a nonprofit for that type of housing, but specifically, what's that?
Well, I didn't know which type of housing did you say that could be for nonprofit?
So I do the commercial for that.
Okay,
I put the commercial property into the nonprofit for that
okay.
specifically.
Yep, that's what I wanted. I must have.
Yeah, but if you want to do a residential nonprofit, you can do that too. That's a different speech. Sorry.
Hi, Ryan. Jim Endebrock.
Hey.
I know Oxford Houses furnish their houses. How about the other entities? Who furnishes them?
Yep. A lot of that is grant money, and a lot of it's pretty easy to do. Yeah, we have to. So we don't have to, but I've helped. The two that I have, I've helped them with furniture and beds and stuff. Some of it is like they call and get it donated, and I help go pick it up with my truck.
Yeah, I got a question for Ken here. I got a real life question here. So I've been renovating a house for a while, and it's a 4-bed, 2-bath. We're on 24th and Pacific. And due to interest rates getting up so high, this isn't a property that no longer makes sense for a traditional rental. Before I could have it rented for $1,500 and do pretty decent on it. Now the bank says that, hey, you know what? It's going to have to be $2,200 before we even consider it. With that being said, though, he's saying that you're on camera. So with that being said, I do have a big basement. I literally could add probably 3 or 4 bedrooms down there if I wanted to. Could also do a full bath down there if I had to. But based on the 4-bed, 2-bath in that area, I would consider this a higher end flip, granite, nice backsplashes. Everything's pretty much new. We'll probably be about $70,000+ into this property when we're done with it. Is that something that, now my banker said, hey, if you did an Oxford program on this, that's actually where I got your cell phone number originally, we would actually entertain it. Now, with this specific example, which I think we all like to hear specific examples, is that something or the area that you guys would even entertain?
So when I look at expansion in the city of Omaha, I will do literally any neighborhood in town. Right? My main criteria is that the house is nice, well kept, and updated and renovated. So I don't want to try to put people into transitional living where it's hardwood floors that were redone in 1962 and there's wallpaper on the walls. An updated property like that and the willingness to cater to what I'm going to need to put multiple people in 2 bedrooms makes all the difference in the world.
Awesome. And I reached out to you about this prior, but I think this is kind of a good lesson for everybody. I have a conversion property that's a 5-unit, but I remember that, in talks with you, you said that isn't really your guys' criteria. You like it to be one big open facility. But traditionally, I think it's just good to kind of know what exactly you're looking for and what's not on the table and what's on the table. And Eve, what's the main reason, just so everybody else knows, that you wouldn't consider like a conversion property with multiple kitchens and whatever not?
So I'll do multiple kitchens and stuff like that. It just has to have large common areas, right? Because under the letter of the law with the American with Disabilities Act, it has to be a single family dwelling. Right? So I have to have a large common area for gathering. Multiple kitchens is fine. Multiple bathrooms is definitely preferred. But if there's separate locked entrances to every one of those units, that's where it becomes an issue for me.
Also, I was talking to Michael Freed, and I think he's doing some work with you, but he's actually expanding outside of the Omaha area, and I didn't really know that was an option for you guys. Obviously, I knew you're looking for everywhere, but you're even entertaining the smaller town areas. Is that correct?
So currently we have houses in Hastings, Grand Island, Kearney, Columbus, Norfolk, Beatrice, Fremont, Council Bluffs, Omaha, and Lincoln.
So you're open to everything?
Everywhere.
And and you said you're kind of capped at 19 properties this year? That's what you're looking for?
No, 19 is what I am shooting for right now, but I will do as many houses as I can open because I open them and within a month they're full.
Well, hopefully we can sit down and meet this week, huh? Thank you.
The need is there, so it's going to be there.
Autumn Evans again. Another question. What's been your experience with the residents maintaining the properties?
Wonderful.
Has it been good?
Yeah. So just so they usually have they're self-policing, but they also come and check the Oxford houses. I didn't have any problem with my Oxford house, but mine was zoned commercial, and once they found that out, they didn't want to be there. So when we transitioned into doing these commercial properties, they get inspected by DHHS or Department of Corrections. They do get inspected. So it's just like any other government organization. There's going to be more work involved, but the people that are licensed to do it handle all that, and it's been wonderful.
Good. What happens if there's damage in the property? Drywall or something? Has anything like that ever happened?
So with us, the house takes care of just about anything that could go wrong with the house under $100, right? So anything major though, like if the furnace goes bad, we're obviously gonna call the landowner, right? But if someone punches a hole in the drywall, we're gonna call a carpenter. We're gonna have the house repaired. One of the things with our houses and the reason why we end up with so many of them here in town is we pride ourselves on, we want to be the nicest house on the block. So we're paying for lawn care. We're having them come out and fertilize and sod the yard. We're making sure that the snow is removed. I live in a beautiful house on 120th and Pacific, and the guys that live with me in that house are going around to all of the neighbors and saying, hey, you know, it snowed. How about we sweep your walk for you? So, I mean, we take immaculate care of our homes.
Awesome. I just have one last question. Thank you for answering all these. If I can remember my question. Oh, what's the visitor policy? Do you guys have a certain visitor policy? Like, if it's a male house, can they have a female stay over, and how many nights, or vice versa? Or do they just kind of, you can have whatever visitors you want, or how does that work? Is there a policy for that? Like,
So, yes, so the ones that I have, and I had one that's a women's house, no visitors, period, nothing, no, because it's just going to be a bad situation. And the other one we have, there is, everybody has to check in anyway, because there's a front desk. And believe it or not, that the front desk is the licensee who runs the place, and they even have a breathalyzer. Like, there's no 3-strike rule. It's 1 strike, you're out. So the guests can be in the common area during like business hours, and usually, and they even offer, they have an office space that they'll rent out, or they have for people to do computer work, but they'll also let people do interviews there too. So in case they need to do an interview with somebody, even their PO or a job, they have that space to use it during business hours.
awesome, thanks.
You're welcome. Hey, Ruben.
Hey, Ryan. So I think I missed a part of the presentation, but I remember $150 is what I remember. I think that's a day per person.
What's the what?
$150 per person a day.
So it depends on who you're housing. With the parolees, the licensee that I have gets $150 per bed per day.
So what I'm trying to do is the math of how much the landlord gets. So if you have like a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and you might have 3 people per bedroom, I'm trying to clarify how much revenue comes into the house, and I was wondering if I can get a little number crunching on that.
We'll talk after.
All right, thank you.
Because you'll embarrass me trying to do math up here without a
There
calculator.
were a few people in my table asking the same question, so.
Okay, well, you and I will talk, and then you will, you know.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I can tell you from the perspective of Oxford House, what we're looking at when we look at a property. So I come and look at your property, you're willing to remodel it, it's a beautiful home, it has adequate parking. I'm going to be willing to pay in the neighborhood of between $250 to $290 per bed per month, right? So you take that with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you would normally rent to a single family for $1,200 or $1,500, and I'm going to be in the neighborhood of 22 to 24 without even batting an eye.
All right, we got everything. I'll talk to you after if you want. We got it.
So anybody that wants my contact information, I have a ton of business cards. I'll be back there towards the back. So if you want to grab one on the way out, I think that'd be the easiest.
Anybody needs to find me, I'm pretty easy to Google. If you spell my name right, like Ted has a problem doing, Or just go to getagoodhome.com. That's all my information is on there. All right. Thank you for having us.
Well, I told you that'd be good, huh? It's so awesome. We also had Ken from Oxford here to kind of answer those extra questions. So appreciate it. Thanks for all the good information. Thanks for getting up here. I know that wasn't something that you were too terribly excited about getting in front of everybody here, but we appreciate it.